on three platforms, on YouTube right now and on Facebook. My Facebook page is as well as Al-Fala's Facebook. In the middle of the Ramadan Reach Out series, last week of us with Ustazah and Musura and Ustazah Hannah and everyone. Today we are also inviting Ustazah and Musura that she's arriving after 11 a.m. and we're starting this session today of Ramadan Recharge with two of our experts. So you just want to see right now, see both of their names. We have with us the Director of High Network Consultant, as well as an experienced psychotherapist, also a family therapist of over 20 years, Miss Mayusni. And over here we have Miss Maria Salman, also the same Deputy Director, psychotherapist, as well as family therapist of over 20 years. So both of them are highly experienced. So, and I think it's really apt for what we're addressing today about getting our Ramadan recharged again. Most times when we're ending Ramadan, we feel super excited, the Ramadan will feel nice. And then the next night is as we did by 70%. Because work and school you start to be very busy for your summer preparation, be very busy for your cooking of your break fast preparation, physical iftar, then pasal malam belum semua, right? You do very affected pasal I see. Kampung gila, kampung gila semua. Then saya explore, mashallah, so much to list, right? And you have to experience it has so much experience. There's so many kinds of families, individuals that require help. So I feel it's very befitting for us to start our morning with exploring the relationship with ourselves, first and foremost. So my Muslim, she's starting first. We'll share the first part of today's Ramadan Recharge session. So please. Let us begin this beautiful morning with the presence of the angels in this masjid, around you, with you, next to you.
that is connected to the ayah. For example, you know, when you talk about Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. We all know this lah, right? We know the next line. But why? Why did that Qul huwa Allahu ahad comes about? Why? So we now need to seek more meaning to what we are doing so that our meaning making becomes more meaningful. So the relationship, number one, that I mentioned earlier is how do we now not just know Allah, but how do we strengthen our relationship with Allah by knowing exactly, learning for sure, how we know what we know. Because if we don't pay attention to what we know, this is what's going to happen. We're going to learn to stop asking questions. We're just going to be doing things for the sake of doing things because that's the act that our forefathers, our whoever grandparents have been doing. So the act of worship becomes meaningless, then you lose the tenacity as well as you losing the meaning. Because if we really pay attention to our worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's really, really beautiful. Because let's say, for example, even when you say the word Allah, if it gets deeper and the relationship gets a bit more intense in that sense, you really will begin to pay attention about His presence. And then you can now begin to connect to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. If you want to find me, look around you. And then you begin to see, yeah, Allah have spoken this before. So we then become a believer that believes in the word of the Maker. We don't just believe because we just believe. That's number one. So I want us to pay attention to our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, I want us to pay attention to, really, you need to pay attention to your relationship with relationship. What do I mean by that? Fajar can explain that. But just a quick one, when you don't pay attention to your relationship, for example, for mothers who wants to get up and do their tarawih, for example, the moment they say Allahu Akbar, this is tarawih prayer, then the children start tugging their baju, or some, you have teenager, the children tak sembayang pun, you begin to wonder why my children not praying, astaghfirullahaladzim, kenapa lah anak aku berdosa sangat? Why is it my children do not want to follow what's right? Why is it that Allah give me this as a test? So your Allahu Akbar becomes 6:30 in that sense. So our relationship with relationship is very important because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said very clearly that we have to maintain hablum min Allah wa hablum minan nas. What does that mean? You have to maintain your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you also have to maintain your relationship with mankind. And mankind, not another man, not another man, okay? Mankind, the person next to you, the person whom you are with, and so forth and so on. It's how we are in relation to being human. Whether or not, bila you nampak orang pakai tudung sengit, you begin to like, betul ke tak betul dia ni pakai tudung macam gini? Why? So we begin to pay attention to the kind of question we have, the kind of curiosity that we have, the kind of relationship we are relating with, because a relationship that does not relate to another person is not a relationship. It's called syok sendiri. And we don't want that. We don't want that. We like to hear people, we like to hear our spouses, for example, saying or telling you how much they love you. But some of us will want to hear, what does it mean when you say you love me? Then husband will say, I love you because I love you lah. Then you'll say, no, what does it mean? Yeah, I love you because I love you lah. What else you want? I buy you a house, I buy you. No lah, but something else. So if you look at it, as human beings, as us, as who we are, we tend to ask for deeper meaning. And that's very, very normal. But it is a question of how you ask for what you need. So if we don't pay attention to how we're relating, me touching and holding Fiza's hands, to me, I mean I love you and I care for you. But it doesn't mean anything to Fiza, like, kau siapa pegang tangan aku? Right? It could mean many things. So I need to be able to learn, Fiza, if I hold your hand, are you okay? Number one. Number two, can I hold your hand and tell you that I love you? And is this sufficient? Fiza can say, no, I want more. Then I can say, oh, what do you want?
I want a bag.
Baru saya ingatkan Ustazah Liana tak ada kat sini, isu beg, isu baju tak timbul. Kau pun sama juga.
I mean, bag symbolizes love for me. We all have different love languages. Mine happens to be a bag.
Okay.
No, joking.
Plastic bag kan?
Test.
Plastic bag got many. Anyway, so I thought I'd just stop with that first and maybe Fajar can continue. Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Oh, now the mics are all dah baik dari doktor dah. Ya, alhamdulillah.
Okay. Thank you, Mai, for that. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think it's really lovely to be sitting here every Sunday morning, looking at your faces and your eyes, trying to connect with what we are trying to say. So thank you for lending us your eyes, your ears, and your time on a Sunday morning, you know. I feel so privileged, and subhanAllah, you don't know the glow that we see on your faces, and it's very connecting. All right, so I think Mai spoke about relationships with Allah and relationship with relationships, and you wanted me to explain about relationship with relationships. But I think before that, I think I just want to go back to, I want to talk about the word recharge. I want to talk about the word iman, and I also want to talk about the word spiritual, the phrase spiritual care, right? So if we look at, I love going back to the etymology of words, how words come about and what it originally means. So if you look at the word recharge itself, you know, it comes from an old French word. It means to reload a vessel, right? So when we talk about, it's interesting when we talk about recharging our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with our relationships, we need to look at the vessel first, and that is us, right? And I relate this back again to the word iman, the Arabic word iman. Interestingly, the word iman only appears 13 times in the Quran. You know, but the derivatives of the word itself, the verb and so on, appears 400 times, right? So the word iman comes from the root word which means to find calm and quiet in your heart, right? So when we talk about relating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and relating with relationships, you know, it's not just about going to the relationship itself, but looking at what's within us. Where is the calm and quiet in our heart? Because sometimes when we want to recharge a relationship or fix a relationship, we go into wanting to do something, right? I need to do this because I want to connect with that relationship. I want to fix this, so I go and do this to this person and so on. But how are we paying attention to the vessel that's connecting you to that relationship? What's going on here? What's going on here? Because our mind and our heart are also connected, right? So I think when we talk about recharging, there needs to be a process where we also look at what's within us in our heart. What's going on? Is there calm and quiet in my heart? What's shaking or vibing, or budak-budak sekarang vibing the heart, right? And you know, so what's going on here? What's going on here? How do I connect what's within me first so that I can relate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better, or relate with my relationships better, right? So Mai spoke about relationship with relationships, right? So I think she briefly explained what it means. So all of us relate with relationships in a certain way, right? So essentially, when we talk about what's our relationship with the relationship, we're asking ourselves to also invite ourselves to think about what is the function of being in that relationship. When we do relationships, what does that mean to us? right? For some of us, for example, if anak kita our children don't relate with us in a certain way, right? We feel the meaning we draw of it, oh, we fail as a mother. We didn't do anything, or I cannot feel like a full woman if my children don't treat me this way. That's our relationship with that relationship, right? So we're very used to describing a good relationship, bad relationship, and so on. But we don't think about what's our relationship with that relationship. Because if we draw a map of our relationships and we begin to position where our relationships are with Allah, with our neighbor, with different members of the family, and then we map it out and look, just draw a map and then put where you are in relation to the different relationships. And then we ask ourselves, if we don't have this relationship, what will happen to us? What does it do to us? Right? So, for example, like if I love my mother so much because my mother's very cincai. She's really very, I learned the word slack from my mother. She's like, she laid back, So she's not somebody who talks much, right? But her presence and her act, the things that she do is enough for me. I just know she's there. She just, if I study for exam, she just buat kopi, satu canting kopi hitam. I know, okay, I feel assured. So for me, that the relationship with that relationship is security, assurance. Right? If I don't have that, I feel very like, So when I want to think about security or assurance, I think of my mother. All right? So we need to go back to what are our relationship with different relationships. Okay? I also want to introduce the phrase spiritual care, right? Because I think what we are doing, we're talking about recharging essentially is how do we reconnect with spirituality, or, how do we reload ourselves so we can reconnect with spirituality. And earlier on, we've established the relationship between what's going on within us and our different relationships. So specifically to spirituality, right? So the term spiritual care actually comes from palliative care practice. So palliative care is end-of-life care, right? It's where you attend to the spirituality of the individual so that their emotional well-being is cared for at that stage of their life, right? And I think it's very interesting when I was looking at this research, they were highlighting 4 aspects of spiritual care, which I think is very, very connected with what Islam is talking about. So the first one, yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Apa tadi cakap Spiritual care. Everyone doing okay? All right. Okay. All right. So the first one is the relational aspects of spiritual care. All right. So how are we connecting with people in relation to understanding our spirituality and religion? And when we talk about relational aspects of spiritual care, how do we engage with one another to the fullness of humanity? Right? So for example, if I sit with Fiza or if I sit with Ma and we are talking about, say, Ramadan, right? How is it she's understanding what I'm saying and my struggle, and how am I also listening and understanding my struggles in Ramadan, and how we connecting with that, and she can hold me and she can see me, and not just, oh gitu Ramadan kau okay lah, oh ini your struggle dengan your husband, oh okay, right? So the key here is to the fullness of humanity. Right? Meaning, bila kita sit with and interact with people, how do we be with people? Right? How do we pay attention to dorang punya non-verbals? How we pay attention to the twitch of their eyebrow? How do we just look at the micro moments dari senyum become sedih? All right? So to the fullness of humanity. All right. The second aspect of spiritual care is actually individual aspects of spiritual care, which is what is your own spiritual needs, right? So we spoke about this in the last Ramadan. Last week is Ramadan. What's the Ramadan? Restart, yeah. Where we spoke about all of us are at different journeys of our spirituality, right? What are our needs? Kan? So for some people it may be I just want to start solat subuh every day consistently. For some, this Ramadan I want to khatam, right? For some maybe this Ramadan I want to go to 5 mosques, right? So that's the individual aspect of spiritual care, right? So thirdly is embodied aspects of spiritual care, right? So embodied aspect ni maknanya how do you go back to your sensory, right? So if we talk about connection dengan human being, so I think Islam has a very beautiful way of, we will salam, right? So there is touch here, yeah, because we forget that our skin are the cells that have memory.
And they also have sweat sometimes.
Yeah, I know. So
That's
before you
okay.
salam, you do that.
I have sometimes sweaty palms, and when orang salam, I'm like, Allah, nak salam aku pula. So just sharing.
So
then I'm like,
So sometimes when we read ayah Quran about nature, how do we learn to touch nature? Right? Some of us go for walks in the park, right? Some of us nak feel 10,000 steps, jalan je menonong kat park, just because you want to count your steps, right? How do you pause and look at the sun? How do you pause and my taught me how to look at lichen. Did you mention lichen in the last session? No. So lichen is this type of algae that grows on both living and non-living things. If you walk in the park, for example, you look at trees, you will see patches of white and green. How do you touch the tree? How do you go to the grass and touch the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because we need to embody Allah's creation. We need to embody relationships. How do we talk to people and, allow our skin to touch their skin and allow our skin to feel the skin of the other person?
Faji, I'm going to interrupt you right there. I don't mean to be rude, but I don't want to forget because I'm 50-year-old,
You are?
I'm forgetful, is that what you're saying? I'm 50, I know.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Anyway, I just wanted to interrupt Fajar right there because I just wanted to ask, as Fajar talks about lichens and Fajar talks about walking in the park, counting your steps, right? Which one are you more connected to? Which one can you relate with? The counting of steps or the lichens? Not the touching of you're very familiar with steps, right? Steps, like now everybody all got jam that can actually take the steps this that, right? But we're not familiar with lichens, right? And when we are not familiar with lichens, what do? We pay more attention to steps. Talking about steps. Your mind, for example, will now begin to remember what steps means, what your watch, what was the last number, and so forth and so on. Why I wanted to interrupt that is because this is the state of our being. We do not have relationship with awareness. Let me tell you this, okay? And this is where I get very passionate. You see, I'm sitting at the edge of the chair already. Okay? What Fajar mentioned earlier is something that has been mentioned in the Quran and that has been mentioned by scientists and neuroscientists and so forth and so on. These lichens that we're talking about has been present for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They are like microbiomes that have existed amongst us with which, without them, we will not be around. Search for lichens, L-I-C-H-E-N. You will be geli macam nak rak when you start looking at it. But, these are the things that Allah has created for us to coexist and be with. But yet we never pay attention to them because they are insignificant. Dia macam terletak aja dekat mana-mana, but you know it is there. And why I wanted to highlight this is also because coming back to and building up on the idea of relationship with relationship, as women or as women, we tend to have more relationship with pain or with failed expectation or unmet expectation, or we have more relationship with what we are expected to do and what we want to do. Is there anything wrong with that? No. But when we do not have the awareness about what we want, how we want it, where we're achieving it, how do we go about doing it, again, I bring you back to my first point. We become doers who don't, doers never mind. To me, what's more concerning is we become believers who dare not even question the authenticity of the information somebody is talking about. We need, and mothers, then this is what I'm trying to impress upon for every one of us, including myself. We have the responsibility to invite our children to learn to ask questions. But what we do is when we children ask questions, we tend to just say, nanti dulu, your question is not important. Umi nak masak. This is more important. Umi dah ketawa dah kat situ. Right? So it has to begin with us. We need to understand also, yes, as we build our relationship with our deen, we need to know what kind of information, because in the Quran, you have many forms of information. From history to biology, from biology to technology, from technology to human relationship, and human relationship to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's massive. The Quran offers us more than what we can imagine, but we only look what's suitable and what's calling for us. But it's not wrong. That's what I'm saying. You need to know where you are as a Muslim, because the Prophet ﷺ said our iman goes up and down. And he literally draws it like this, right? He draws it like that. And when he does that, what does it say? Our iman will go down. But when our iman go down, does it mean that we have to stay down? We can go up. But we need to know what excites you as a human being. For example, if you, where you are now with your religiosity or your spirituality, you are very comfortable with philosophical ideas, go ahead, find out, do more. But understand what Sufi, what Imam Al-Ghazali mean when he says that, go back, reference, find the references, not just sit with the fact that Rumi said that you are the light, we settled that I am the light. It's very dangerous. So have a relationship with multiple forms of knowing. Sometimes we tend to rely on our husbands as piece of information. Good. As long as your husband has the right form of knowledge. You know, sometimes we don't, because we don't question, we don't know where that is coming from. Your role is to just pay attention to cooking. Okay, I have to cook. The imam all say we have to listen to our husband, then we cook only lah. But we now see in our practice, in our work, we see women are trying to find that balance. Women are trying to find what's the balance between work and also being a very good and effective mom. And then they all, you know, they become stressful and they find it even wrong to even ask for help from their spouses. Like, where did you get that? So our question has always been, where did you get that idea from? Who told you that? And they say, oh, the imam from this. Oh, my husband says this. I'm not saying husbands are wrong. Really, no. We need to be able to find a relationship that can allow us to explore, number one, our understanding of our spirituality and what we need to be able to advance further. Yeah, I mean, coming back is really about understanding. To recharge, you need to know where you are. And in order to know where you are, you need to have a relationship with awareness. In order to have relationship with awareness, you have to be able to sit with you and not just evaluate. We are so good at evaluating and just putting ourselves down to the point that we don't even evaluate ourselves and be fair. We become so judgmental, we hantam ourselves far too much, and then we don't know. We cannot go further because you hantam yourself far too much, too many. Okay, there we go. Maimuna is being very passionate. You see, from lichens to relationship, I'm crazy. I don't know why you're listening to me, but are you okay, Fiza?
I guess. Am I okay? Am I the drama? Wow, talking to Kak Mai punya level of analogies are different here. It's like macam NUS thesis kind of like level. From the what is it?
Lichen.
Yeah, I know lycopene only. What?
Lichen.
I only know lichen like this morning. Masya Allah. I've got to really buck up on biology. I know it's just algae. I didn't know there was
Algae.
Yeah, I know algae. This
Microbiomes.
is microbiomes. Yes, I do.
No, seriously, like
I
guys,
do.
you know yogurt, right? You know yogurt.
You know, right?
You know yogurt, right? Yogurt drink, yogurt korma.
Probiotics, prebiotics. You see, nampak
probiotics.
pandai.
You know, right? Familiar, right? Inside it are the family of lichens.
So it exists everywhere.
Everywhere on your skin. Like for example, those who have eczema.
It is the.
Don't put out your hand. Okay, those who have eczemas, you have the family of lichen with you. And here we are trying to take things to actually scrub it and take it away. Because we adopt a way of thinking that we need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
We forget that every microbiomes in your body are bacteria. Okay, don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So
But that doesn't mean you can go to botanic gardens and start licking the bacteria. Just saying, like, oh, you are part of me, I am you, let's get friends, you know. No, okay? That's where we draw the line, and that's called boundaries. Boundaries. So, back to Ms. Fajar.
No, it's
Ms.
okay.
Fajar.
Because I think what I'm also wanting to connect with what you said is, I think in this time of age, I think we've lost the art of embodying. You know,
Apa tu embodying, Fajar?
Yeah. So embodying one level is, of course, to be able to touch and experience sensation.
But these days it's very dangerous to touch people.
No,
You
not
touch one child, then you salah already.
Yeah.
Right? You get blamed. Why you touch my child? Who are you? Like we sayang, I get that problem. No, I see children yang sayang sangat. I'll just come like sayang Auntie Mai. Sekali mak dia tengok. Like, who are you? This is so interesting. Yeah. But all I wanted to do was to connect with the child. That's all. But because we live in a state of fear, we become more familiar with fear than being with each other. Tu quotable quote, Fiza.
Yeah. Because, for example, I was just thinking about how our lives are so automated. Right? So for example, if you go back to just the act of zikr, right? So we used to zikr just with our hands, right? Count 33 times. And then came the tasbih. What's the difference between when you touch your hand and you zikr, and you touch the tasbih and you zikr, and now there's a zikr counter, right? So how are you connecting? So when Allah asks us to zikr, it's not just us connecting with what we are uttering with Him and uttering to Him, but He is also asking us to relate with what we are connecting as we are relating and uttering His name. So if I zikr Allahu Akbar Subhanallah, and I touch my hand, and I touch the next layer, the next line on my finger, what am I remembering? Am I thinking about the Creator who created, why my finger created this way? Why must have 3 lines? When I touch this finger, what else am I remembering? Alamak, tadi potong bawang kena tangan ni. You know, kat rumah mak. You know, you're relating with many things at any one time. But when we do things, and for example, we baca Quran on our phone, right? Are we relating with the ayah we read on the screen, or are we relating with the blue rays on the screen? And what is that blue rays and relating in that moment doing to our eyes and the way we begin to then look at other things, right? So I think we really have lost the art of embodiment because technology and convenience has taken that away from us. How do we go back to, you know, being with one another? How do we go back to just, you know, sometimes, you know, we speak to families where, you know, at the dinner table, everyone is eating and then on the phone. You know, there's no longer relating. There's no longer a process of relating and sensing and sense-making together.
Very true. Nowadays, nowadays we speak better or we articulate ourselves better through WhatsApp chat. Nothing wrong lah. Nothing really wrong. But I think it's really an invitation for us to begin to see what is this medium doing to both of us. There's nothing wrong with it, but we need to really understand what difference will it make kalau kita actually begin to talk with one another.
Oh yeah, sorry, I have to say the dread that I had this week because I discovered what ChatGPT can do. It is basically this writing tool, AI writing tool, where you can just put a subject, how to cook nasi lemak, for example, and they'll come out 3 paragraphs. The reason why I discovered it, because I was marking assignments, right? And I was like, oh my God, I cannot feel what the students write. It sounds very robotic. You know, so I pergilah to this thing and I tried, and I was shaking after I saw what it could do, because I was concerned about what is it doing to our capacity to think and conceptualize, you know, because that's a very important part of relating with ourselves and even relating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and relating with knowledge, relating with ilm, you know. So it's really very scary when we look at what's present and what's emerging and what's actually that doing to our relationship with ourselves, with others, and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think
so in essence, for the purpose of our relationship with our Deen, I invite you, I really, really am inviting each and every one of us to go back and really, 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 really pay a bit more attention as part of you recharging your relationship with the Deen, is to really go back to the Hadith Jibril. Hadith Jibril is the hadith when the angel Jibril come and visit the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ 3 questions. And the question is, what is Islam? What is Iman? And what is Ihsan? I'm not going to tell you the answer because Sheikh Google will tell you the answer. But what I'm more interested in is, what is your understanding based on where you are, and what else do you need? Do you need to have more conversation of what Islam is, or do you now begin to want to connect with, for example, what is Iman is to you, and what does Ihsan means, and how much of Ihsan are we doing upon ourselves and towards the people around us? So I invite you to go back to the Hadith Jibril, to learn again, and also pay attention to the description of Angel Jibril when he was in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and how the narration was describing about him. Datang dengan baju putih. Masa tu siapa dah masa nak gosok, but they really crisp. That's the description. And what can we learn from that? As a Muslim, have we crispened ourselves up, and also the way we present ourselves to other non-Muslim individuals? Let alone how are we in relation to people around us, with our family, with them, so forth and so on. Allahu A'lam.
MashaAllah. It's now raining, drizzling, so we can make a very quick dua. I love making dua in the rain as well. MashaAllah. Talking about relationships, and I feel like what Fajar said about touch, getting in touch with people, it might be us restarting back that again after like an entire year of us isolating ourselves. It was only last Ramadan that we start to go out to one or two bazaars. But this year is just full on. It's like every day you have your friends asking you for iftar. You have like iftar with families, friends, and then work iftar, right? And then when you get back home, you see, I feel like sometimes the lethargy is not just from work, but it's also the sudden, steep incline of human interaction that makes it tiring, that you lose that connection with the Creator, with Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. And I received this question that I'm going to be sharing with you. So think about what you want to ask Miss Fajar or Miss Mai, because they usually charge quite a lot per session. Joking, for high network. But today they'll be answering your questions one by one, and you can actually drop me your questions, because talking about relationships, and we do know that it's important for us to maintain a relationship with Allah, of course, but also with humankind. And I found out the term is hablum minanas. Just found out through, this Ramadan Reach Out. And so this person asked 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we had a pre-Ramadan Reach Out. This person asked, Assalamualaikum. Ramadan is nearing. We all know that Ramadan is all about goodness and fostering great relationships. Can I fast, continue collecting my pahala, but at the same time, I don't have a relationship with my parents, with my family? Can those two things coexist? Me, and my family relationship is just gone, but at the same time, can I still be a good Muslimah? Can these things exist? So I would like to ask Kak Mai and Fajar, what do you both think about it, and what can we share? I'm sure all of us here are challenged in relationships some way or other. It could not be just parents. Parents, of course, is the high tier lah. It could be with your husband, your spouse, that you don't agree with for Ramadan, because his way and his lifestyle is so different, and his family is vastly different than your upbringing perhaps. And you just want to focus on yourself and just ignore this part altogether. Or you have not been talking to your siblings for ages, and this Ramadan is just going to be the same. Just going to just ignore them, right? Not part of my life, I'll go on with it. So think about what questions you would like to ask Miss Mai and Miss Fajar. You can airdrop to me. Meanwhile, they answer this question first. So please. By the way, there's a QR code on the screen, so we would love it so much if you could make your kind derma, your infaq Ramadan to Al-Falah, and may all of your kind deeds and intentions be accepted by Allah, inshallah. Yes.
Okay, thank you Fiza for that question and for remembering the question.
Fudge, let me ask, who can relate to that question? Put up your hand. So everybody's shy.
We have one person very bravely putting our hands like that, because we do not know what's it could be with parents, it could be with friends, it could be with siblings. Some of you are staying on your own, renting your own flat, expensive, but you're like, you know what, mental health. You know what, never mind. My mom hates me, loves my brothers, not me, or loves my sisters and not me. So, and then takkan nak sebulan ni rental nak just like it's okay, I stay back with my mom. It gets awkward, right?
She wants to answer already now.
Yeah. Fajar, you ready?
Yes. Yes, ready.
Go for it.
I've learned to be okay with the 20 years work with her, so okay. Yeah. So This is reminding me of just a conversation I had with a client just this week, about, the long-standing concern for her is basically the relationship with her family that did not accept her marriage, and she's constantly trying to repair and reconnect with family. So I think I would like to highlight, firstly, when we think about recharge, right? Usually we always think that we have to do something. There must be movement. There must be shift. We are so used to the idea of because kita tengok like handphone 100% charge, right? We must charge full, there must be difference, right? But we also forget that recharge also can mean stillness, right? Because stillness is also a form of movement, right? Because sometimes when the mind and things are too moving and too chaotic, we also don't know what to do, right? But Allah says, oh you who reflect, oh you who listen, right? So if we remain still, have you ever sometimes traffic so fast and then you just pause kejap and then you figure out, okay, actually now I can cross the road, right? So when you are still, there is movement or something will emerge for you to notice in terms of where you can move, right? Even if it means a move in the way you perceive things. Because we want movement to nak kena do something that, okay, this connection must change, this connection must shift, all right? So I want you to remember that recharging also can mean stillness. Because in stillness, you can see and find what needs to move or where is the movement that needs to be attended to. All right, so when we talk about reconnecting with relationship, so the question that I ask, I understand for this particular client is that for her it's important to have a family relationship. It's about religion, it's about responsibility, it's about duty. Right? So when we talk about things like that, are there other ways where we can reconnect in that relationship that can mean responsibility or obligation? Right? So when we explore that, so many other things surface. For example, it could be, I need to stop having a relationship with expectation. Because I feel like when I try to do something for my parents must reciprocate. Because they never balas balik, that's why I feel, the relationship never move, right? So I need to stop having a relationship with expectation. Oh, there are other ways I can carry out responsibility. So for example, we talk about, I can send food hamper, I can just make an effort to, text my parents that I'm thinking of them and so on. And so when we talk about the meaning of that relationship and how we can actually attend to that relationship and reconnect, we expand the premises of how that idea of reconnecting can mean and can shift, right? So oftentimes we find that we are stuck because we do something, we feel like nothing changed, right? So in expecting change, we will feel stuck, right? Because when we talk about the relationship with family, for example, a lot of us always have expectation, and I think that requires attending to. Right? You want to add on?
I think we need to also listen to ourselves. When we say we want to have a relationship, sometimes what we really want is to clear off the pain that had occurred in the relationship. We want it to be kosong-kosong. Kita orang Melayu, we like to have this kosong-kosong mentality. Pedek ke apa? Seriously, boleh ke kosong-kosong? Because especially when we are not very good at having conversation about what we are going through. Maknanya, when there's conflict, we don't pay attention to the conflict, but we have expectation that this conflict will move away. Pergi tepi sikit and we will be fine. And most of the time, it is not just your own expectation. It is also the capability of the other person that you need to be interacting with. For example, your mother have hurt you, for example, abandoned you when you were young, for example. And then now when you are grown up, you know, the society says, or even Islam says, you have to respect your parents. Painful, sis. How do I reconcile that? How do I go about telling my mom, for example, or you tell mom, like, you know, how can you abandon me now and you're expecting me to be the best of daughter to you? So it's a very conflictual situation. To expect for a relationship to be A-OK almost instantaneously, I think we're joking to ourselves. We need to be kind and be very honest enough with what we really, really want. And I think one of the things that I really, really love, I love quotes. I don't like psychobabbles, but I like this particular quote because I studied the work of the writer. Those who are not familiar or who wants to know this, please read up Viktor Frankl's work, because he said, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Because there will be a time in a relationship you cannot repair them, but you need to take the leap to be able to be, say for example, sit with the person who hurt you. I'm not saying that even if there is an abuse, you keep quiet, okay? That's not what I'm saying. Let me clarify. If there is abuse, you have to address it. You have to work at it. Cannot biarkan benda tu and allow the abuser to continue abusing you, for that matter. But a relationship that has got to do with the need for love, the need for attention, the need for affection, the need for touch. And if this person say, for example, I cannot give anymore because of my age, then Fiza, for example, will need to be able to find the stimulus within her to be able to quote unquote reconcile. And this is where we need to have the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the conversation we need to have with Allah will have to be things like, oh Allah, I desire touch from my mother, but my mother is unable to give me the touch. Touch me in ways, Ya Allah, that only you can give. Ya Allah, I wish for affirmation from my spouse, but I know my husband cannot give that because he doesn't come from that environment. Oh Allah, only you can teach. Grant him or her the teachable moment so that we can benefit from the relationship. So when we do not have relationship, do not forget you have the bridge to a relationship, which is your relationship with ad-du'a. Don't forget that you have that relationship. Allah grant us that opportunity to make direct request from Him who created everything for all of us. So Allah will respond. He may not respond to it. And this is where we begin to, so sometimes in recharging our relationship, we feel like our iman will be like, 6:30, for example. Quickly stand up, oh Allah, today I have sinned and I am delaying my prayers. I ask of you, Ya Allah, to make me come back to the sajdah. As we're walking. And when you see somebody else praying very, very khushu', for example, oh Allah, grant the person the reward. Ya Rab, grant me the khushu' that this person is giving. So as Muslims, we are not, what is locate? Stingy. Don't be locate with your dua. Don't be locate. When you see a sister, for example, oh Allah, grant this sister the tears where she can also cry when she meets you. Oh Allah, this sister is troubled by, say for example, her relationship with her children. Ya Allah, protect the child. Sometimes kita marah because budak ni kurang ajar kat mak dia kan. We say for example ni, oh Ya Allah, this is the wrath of Allah. Astaghfirullahalazim. Make dua and say, Ya Allah, this child is troubled, Ya Rab. This child is troubled. Hold this child so that the mother can be at rest and develop empathy and mercy for her and for the child. Those of us who are not familiar with waking up at night, trust me, now begin. Begin. Wake up in the middle of the night and put up your hands. You cannot imagine the amount of dua that can come into your head for you to be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi al-azim, sisters, our world today desire kindness and empathy. And where can we get that other than our Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where He is much closer than our jugular veins in the middle of the night. So wake up, wake up. Don't just prepare sahur because you can prepare yogurt very easily. But you know, what do you call that? Have your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Build that. Yeah. Bismillah.
I think I also want to add as well to what Mai is saying. Because in wanting a relationship to shift as well, I think the question that we also need to ask is whether we can receive the difference. You know, so I spoke with a client who's a husband who came in like, I'm so upset. You know, I try, I give her, but she never attend to me. She never attend to me. I feel so. So he was very upset that he wasn't attended to. He's always attending to the wife. So I asked him, so if she changes and she responds to you, can you receive the difference? Can you receive the difference response? And then he paused. And he said, actually no, I'd be a bit skeptical actually because of the history of the relationship. Like, you know, sometimes we want difference, you know, and sometimes maybe there is a shift. We also don't know whether our body, our what we remember can receive the difference because of the history of the relationship.
Yeah, I have a couple who actually never hold hand for the longest time and then come for therapy, right? And then I said, okay, what stops you from touching your wife? Oh, I don't know whether however she reacts. And then I said, okay, touch now. Touch now. And then this is what happens. Okay, you touch my head. This reaction is enough to make a person want to try again. And then I said, try again. No, I'm not going to try again because you see what happened? You see what happened? You see what happened? This is exactly what happened. Every time I try to reach out to her, this is what happened. She will reject me right at the very moment. And for men, kirim salam. Satu kali dia try, lepas tu especially in front of another person who's a female and a counselor in a position of power, matilah. Cannot make it. But what I did was, I apologized. I said, as a woman, on behalf of your wife, I apologize. And then you see his face, daripada muka macam so garang, and says, why are you apologizing? Yeah, because I think it's painful for you to be rejected in front of me. And then your wife is rejecting you. It's so difficult. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And then he start back again. Then I said, can I then hold her to hold your hand? So I decided to hold her hand. And then I said, if you trust me enough to hold you through this process, I'm not going to allow him to hurt you, but offer you a space where you can be with each other. So when she did this, I took her hand, she took the husband. First, just a gentle touch, and then there was a rejection. Then I said, it's okay. That's usual, because this is unfamiliar for the longest time. And then I said, try using one of your fingers to just clench. And then another one, another one, another one. From whole hand, they decide to do what? They hug one another in front of me, subhanallah. So it requires a little bit of nudging. It requires a little bit of attending.
Test. Yeah, that kind of answers one of the questions that I received, which is getting help. So this lady said that, can we rely on relationship guru to improve relationships with people? I'm trying to be resourceful. It's okay for the disclaimer. But, I mean, that itself I felt was a relationship guru thing on both husband and wife. Did they explain why that she started to reject his touches?
Oh, well, I'm sure, I mean, there are, there's a lot that had happened in the relationship. So the relationship has suffered a lot of quote-unquote trauma, you know, where the pain of hurting one another has escalated from level 1 to probably level 150. So that simple thing we call touch, that's supposed to be meaningful, becomes painful and bloody full for some people. That's really, really painful to watch. But yes, just touching on what relationship guru. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I think we spoke about this last week, you know. I think kita harus berguru pada yang ramai. Jangan berguru hanya pada satu. Kerana yang satu tu barangkali hantu.
Takut salah Because this question is connected to another question about husband and relationships and guru. So this is very interestingly asked by a lady. She says, Salam, this question is for Kak Mai. My husband, because it's about what you said earlier on. She said, my husband is a man of knowledge. So I came from a secular background with the lack of Islamic knowledge. So there are times when I am in doubt of something, I'll proceed to ask him. However, he gets upset. After I've asked him, I proceed to ask other asatiza friends. And he will say things like, I feel like you don't trust my knowledge. And it's not that I don't trust him. I just want to make sure his answers are credible or perhaps in context of what she's asking. So how can I go about this? I love him, but sometimes he makes my blood go up. Highly relatable.
Highly, highly, highly observable. My dear sisters, there is hikmah. There is this concept of hikmah. You see, you can go to the husband. So it depends on relationship, to be honest. Firstly, please do not call me a relationship guru. Okay, I takut dengan the word guru. Okay, very, very fearful. I'm sharing information based on the little knowledge that I have. The best of knowledge comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So coming back to that question, the question that I also have for the sister in return is, what stops her from asking the opinion of other asatizas and then come back to the husband and have conversation? We can do that. You ask others first and then come back and say, you know, this ustaz says this. Listen to this. The difference is, are you asking for an opinion? Are you asking him, how can we think about this together? A lot of the time we ask him, what you think? Man's understanding is, I'll give you my opinion. When he gives you his opinion, you tak angkut, of course the next question will come, why on earth do you ask me in the first place? Right? So we need to learn how to set the context for conversation. Maknanya, you know, kalau kita nak satu perbincangan with regards to an opinion, for example, ask for a discussion. Say that you want to have a discussion instead of saying, what's your opinion? And some of us are so cheeky, subhanallah. We're really cheeky. We're asking for opinion where we already have one. So we are testing the other person, and then when the person reacts to that, we then start to respond in a way that he's a stronger one, he's using his power. Of course that he's using his power, because one of the powers that you are also equally challenging is his authority and his knowledge. What we are really needing to ask, when I say about asking, having a relationship and awareness to ask question, is to really keep ourselves aware, particularly a relationship. The relationship must be open to new information. If a relationship is not open to new information, you can be worried. Like for example, I get the husband to actually ask the wife, Why is cooking important for you? What does it mean to you? And then the wife responded, or the response was, my parents, that's how my parents are, and that's how the marriage works. Like, duh. The husband, that one is an opportunity. And then I asked the husband, what exactly are you asking? Exactly, what are you exactly asking? No, I just wanted to know her opinion because I want her to know that I am okay with her not cooking. You see what I mean? So we tend to jump, what do you call it? What? What? Conclude. Oh, conclude, yes. We're very good at writing conclusions. So be mindful of your own conclusion when you want to be in a relationship, because the conclusion usually, and what's helpful, is when it's done together. But does that necessarily mean that there's no hurt lah in a relationship, borak lah?
On the same notes, is another husband question. You girls are on fire. But very highly relatable. So she says, my husband is an introvert. Doesn't talk much, rarely speak. And I feel whenever I talk to him, I don't always win. So how do I advise him or ask him to seek knowledge together for the benefit, or hereafter? So one is dispensing knowledge, the other one doesn't want to seek knowledge.
Okay, right. So I think this is a situation that we sometimes see in couples where, one party may be more ready to connect with spirituality, the other party not so ready yet, right? And that becomes an issue of contention in the relationship. So I think what we need to also pay attention to is, number one, usually sometimes when stuckness happen in the relationship, we always focus on the stuckness. So in this instance is, he's not wanting to seek knowledge about the religion, right? So we forget about everything else in the relationship that can be connecting. Could be the husband do housework, the husband do many other things, and that's the only thing that people struggle with. All right. So how do you, when you are at different phases of learning the religion, how do you adopt what do you call it? Inviting stance rather than imposing stance?
But tiring, Fajar. Always the woman have to invite, be kind. Like when, right, can men be kind? Isn't that the question that we are asking? Why can't men be kind? So we're really asking gender-specific kind of responses. Like you're expecting men to kind in a woman's way. Cannot make it. Their kindness is different. They show kindness, they show emotion very differently. And I cannot assume that, this man and that man all share the same kind of expression. But women, they want similar. When they say love, they mean, flowery, Chanel scented or Dior scented love.
Or maybe like an Instagram post, I have one photo on your feed perhaps, because sometimes you see someone's husband, my wife, I would never have it any other way, and your husband, your finger, the photos of your finger also not on his feed. You're like, so basically sometimes, and especially in this world of digital, you cannot help but tercompare. Right? Or like you don't say out loud, but you're like, okay, but can I have the minimum at least? Okay, I'm not traveling all over the world, but at least could you just speak to me? Could you just probably, bring me to a masjid? I'm not asking you to bring me for an expensive New Zealandish holiday, but bring me to a masjid perhaps, like small little basic stuff.
But Fiza, darling, I think what we need to also recognize, right? Not many of us have relationship with masjid. I think, Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of our sisters who are very ready to come forward to be in the masjid and do their prayers and learn and so forth and so on. But I think can I also say this? Maybe I'll just take the risk to say this. Many of our brothers also, not because they do not want to be, and I think in fact it's not just brothers, sometimes it's also the sisters as well. We have trauma with spirituality. We don't talk about it. You know, I've had a sister who didn't want to come to any religious class because the only thing that she remembers ever since she was young is how she is made to think that the religion is only about hellfire, and that everything, you must be able to read your Fatiha properly, otherwise the angels will be laknating you. That's the constant messages that, you know, some of us have received, and some of us are able to get out of it because we got different kind of information. But most of them still continue to be traumatized by that relationship. So I think what we are surfacing is the need for us to be kind for those who are not. Kerana spirituality is actually a very individual process, but if it can be turned into a relational process, Wallahi lazim, it's beautiful. Yeah, but let's not negate the possibility of the reason why the person does not want to or not wanting to have a relationship with an asatizah, for example, for that matter. We need to be able to understand that. Yeah, I'm not saying condone it. Yeah, but you need to nudge it. You need to just say, I think I want you to come first, and say, can we go together? It would be meaningful for me if we go together and seek knowledge, and then we can have different kind of conversation. Or, hey, I really tak faham lah this thing about hadath, for example. Do you understand? Oh, I don't. Let's go. You know, so it's really like what Fajar say. How do we develop an invitational stance to invite others? Because if we read the Quran properly, just remember how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed each one of us.
Yeah.
So
and when you
telling him what to do is very different from inviting him
Correct.
to do it
Correct.
together.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Because I think I'm wanting to remind us, if we really read the Quran and really understand how Allah calls upon you to goodness. When Allah calls upon us to goodness, He will say, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, O you who believe. And then He will also say, O you who reflect, O you who think. Imagine the number, the amount of time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inviting us to think about things. Yeah, so be gentle in inviting another person towards the deen. Because kalau kita menjemput seseorang dengan kekerasan, particularly with children, particularly with children, if we invite the children with kekerasan or fear, that's what they will get. Allah protect us and protect all our children.
Yeah. Because I think when you spoke about trauma with spirituality, I think that includes even our own trauma with spirituality. Because I think speaking with a lot of women and men, sometimes the stuckness come out is because they desire that what they did not get growing up. And they build the expectation that the spouse should enjoin them in fulfilling that idea that, okay, this is how I want to experience spirituality in family life. Yeah, so where does that desire come from? And whether this desire that you have, do you need this person to fulfill it for you, or is it something that you can do yourself? You know, because if we think that to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need the other person, then we giving it over to the other person in relation to something that we can do for ourselves, right?
So again, it is really the highly nuanced way you craft it to your husband of inviting him rather than, you know, you should go to the masjid, you should do this. you should craft it such as, oh, do you want to join me? Then we can go travel together. After that, maybe like shopping. Talking about shopping, we'll be taking a short break very soon because we have one booth of Din Dunia right over there. I know that some of you did not bring your cash, but they take pay now. Not taking any cards from Din Dunia. Am I? No. Okay, just trying my luck. Everything is pay now. There are QR codes all over the masjid for you to also make your donation, inshallah. And if you're watching live right now, do make your infaq Ramadan, because all of the money that you'll be donating this Ramadan, I've been informed by Ustaz Farid, it will go to Ramadan operations, the iftar bento meals for those who are breaking fast here in Al-Falah, Ramadan porridge, da'wah programs, and also it will go to the Imam of Tarawih and Qiyam as well. So mashallah, and this Ramadan we really want to do lots of goodness, and one of it is sedekah, inshallah. And Kak Mai, do you want us to go for a short break first?
Yeah, let's do that. But if they have questions, they can
Yes,
also
you can
go
just keep on dropping. We have some questions about solat. Some of you are saying that I've seen too much. Some of the questions, okay, I'll just share some of the questions that we'll be answering later with Ustazah Lena Musfira. So some of the more I feel religious questions will be answered by Ustazah Lena. This lady said, and I think it's very relatable to a lot of us, I've seen too much and I want to change for the better. I'm trying, but it's very hard. Please make dua for me.
Amen.
Yeah. And I got this question last year when I first did Cakap Masjid. It was a very simple question. This person asked, Ustazah, nak berubah tu senang ke susah? And the answer is beautiful. So I'm sure Ustazah Liana will have an answer later. This one, I try my best to perform all of my 5 prayers, but sometimes I still missed them. Will Allah still accept my fasting if my prayers are not consistent? This is like a marathon right now in Ramadan. And in every marathon, you need to start training and practicing. And if you go from not practicing into full-on marathon, you get breathless, you cannot breathe. You get like, you know what, forget it, I'm not even going to participate, I'm just going to quit this marathon altogether. And that's why this Ramadan Recharge is so aptly named Ramadan Recharge, because for some of us who came in with zero training, we come on full on. First day, boom, 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 5, alhamdulillah. Tarawih, witir, complete, alhamdulillah. Second day, then start missing one asar. Because you know what? From work, balik rumah kelam kabut, and then it's already Maghrib. Right? And you go like, oh, Allah will forgive me, I guess. But then you hear from Asatiza, in Ramadan, these 5 prayers is the most basic. It's a must. It's wajib. It's not even a choice. And then you go like, ya Allah, can this all exist? So Ustazah Liana will be answering them. So many, I feel, personal questions. And the wonderful thing is I have no idea who, texted me all of this. So inshallah, we'll be answering them very soon. And Bismillah, may your shopping be beneficial. May your toilet trip also be beneficial, and continue. There's all of this PayLah, PayNow QR codes pasted all over the masjid for us, inshallah, to make donation to Al-Falah. And for you watching live right now, thank you so much. Don't forget to press the like button and share button, and hopefully that as you're watching and making little infaq to Al-Falah, may our Ramadan get better, inshallah, with sedekah. I know of some ustazah who goes like, if you're facing distress, sedekah. You're facing stress, sedekah. And may with this sedekah today, inshallah, may whatever troubles your heart be lightened and be solved, inshallah. So we'll see you soon.
Can I quickly respond to some of the things, Fiza? Because I think one of the things that I find very important for us to pay attention is to the concept of being kind to ourselves in our worship. Yeah, please be kind and gentle to yourself and not hantam yourself, because that's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of us. Yeah, please be kind and gentle. And the next thing that I wanted to highlight is you need to be able to differentiate. The question that you are asking about your ibadah or about your worship, is that coming from the premise of you doubting the act, or are you actually doubting yourself and the extent of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because if you have self-doubt, and you put it in your religion, and you question your religious act and worship, I will question your self-doubt. Because self-doubt requires attending, not correcting. It requires attending. It's a very different ideas altogether. Allahu Akbar. Okay, the one and only Ustazah is here. Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. But anyway, so again, before we go for a short break, just wanting to put it out there for us to play with the idea that when you begin to have doubt about your relationship or your worship, that's okay, because you can clarify. But if you have self-doubt in relation to your worship, that's a conversation you need to have with humankind, not just within yourself, because the more you have conversation with yourself, the more deeper the sense of doubt towards yourself will occur. And that, my dear sisters, can be psychological in nature. Yeah, so please, 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 please have a relationship with people who can respond to you and your circumstances. Because sometimes we continue to be in the loop of self-doubt, and then self-blame, and then don't know whatever. Okay? Self-sabotage. I like. Okay, I can break already lah.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break. We'll be back in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes from now. Shopping not enough. Okay, Ken. 5 minutes from now. So Bismillah, we'll see you at about 11:40. 10 minutes, 10 minutes, okay. So 11:43, I'll be back. So we'll be stopping this live, or just let it run. Let it run. This live stop. Okay. Okay. So thank you everyone for watching our live. We'll be getting a short break and be back for part 2. So you'll receive a notification if you have subscribed, and you will see ting, we are back live for part 2 of Ramadan Recharge. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.